This is a cable skull crusher for the triceps, a great exercise to add variation into your triceps training. Since this is a cable versus a barbell will give a slightly different resistance curve, specifically a significant amount of tension at the top of the movement. In this tutorial, I'll be demonstrating two variations, one with the straight bar like I am doing here, and one with a rope attachment. Both variations are great, and I'll dive into the differences later in this video. And additionally, you could also use a V-bar attachment like this one as well. Starting with the straight bar variation, place a bench in line with the cable, and I also like to put the bench at a slight incline as this will allow for a slightly greater range of motion. However, you can also do with the bench flat like this, and always do it with the variation that you feel best and most comfortable with. To get in position, grab the bar with one hand and then slide onto the bench, and then grab the other bar, placing those hands on that bar just inside shoulder width, and then use those lats and triceps to bring that bar up. Start with those arms extended, bring in those arms just slightly back from vertical as this will allow for a slightly greater range of motion on that way down. Go slowly on that way down for 2 to 3 seconds on the eccentric, bringing those hands down until the bar is just over the top of the head like this. You also notice that the elbows are angled just slightly out about 15 to 20 degrees from vertical to be in that scapular plane, and also keep better tension to the triceps and minimize strain on those elbows. Also on that way down, those elbows will translate slightly back to allow for a good range of motion like this, but they shouldn't be going back more than a few inches. I also like to get a short pause at the bottom to really feel the stretch and tension of the triceps as well. One big tip on that way down is think like you're actively pushing those hands up towards the ceiling, and think like you're pointing those elbows up towards the ceiling to keep better tension in those triceps. On that way up, push up and forward, making sure to also push those knuckles forward, keeping those wrists straight and keeping those elbows in relatively the same position, allowing those elbows to translate just a little bit forward, but do not let those elbows flare out excessively out to the side. Get a short pause at the top since the angle of the cable allows for significant tension at the top of this movement. As you get closer to failure, you may not be able to lock out the elbows at the top, and that is okay. And for the advanced lifters out there, go until you can't get that bar at least halfway up. Next up is the rope variation. This neutral grip will allow for slightly more tension in the long head of the triceps and will also be easier on the elbow. So this variation if you have discomfort of the elbows or want to get more involvement of that long head of the triceps. This is the reason the rope adjusts the bench at an incline around 20 degrees, and the execution is very similar to the straight bar variation. Have the elbows angled just slightly out, about 15 to 20 degrees out to the side, this time starting with those arms extended straight up and vertically since the rope already allows for a full range of motion without having to angle them back. Shoot for 2 to 3 seconds on that way down during the eccentric with a short pause at the bottom. Notice that my hands are going all the way down to the back of the head and the elbow is going past a 90-degree bend. The elbows will naturally point out to the side, again just 15 to 20 degrees, but do not let them excessively flare out to the side. On that way up, push those thumbs up and forward, pushing the hands slightly apart to shoulder width, and try to get a pause at the top. Towards the end, you may not be able to extend the arms all the way up, and that's okay. For the advanced lifters out there, keep going until you can go halfway up with those hands. And next up, I'm going to show the mistakes you want to avoid. I'll be demonstrating it using the straight bar attachment, but also applies to the rope variation. And that is letting that elbow translate too much back on that way down. Remember, we want to keep those elbows in relatively the same position, only allowing the elbows to go back a little bit on that way down. Another thing you want to avoid is letting those elbows flare out too much to the side like this. And lastly, avoid having those wrists relaxed and bent like this. Remember to push those knuckles forward on that way up. Thanks for watching. Go ahead and like this video and subscribe if you aren't already so I can keep making tutorials just like this one. See ya.